Like my husband, not for nothing, we could get divorced tomorrow. That's my through and through. Right. I'm gonna call him every time anything happens. It's bad, sad, whatever. And so when you have that foundation, all the other things fall into play. Everything else makes sense. And you can get through the hard times. You can get through the times where you don't like that man. He's pissing you off. Go in the corner. And that you might be in the corner for 5 years. But I'm able to get through that because the foundation is solid. You feel what I'm saying? And if you're and I honestly believe that that's how you get to divorce, is because that foundation isn't solid. Because those things happen to all of us in every relationship. Think about your friendships, how many times she's changed. The people that you love, like, people change. The older that you get, you want to do things, you learn new things, and you're only able to withstand that is because the foundation is strong. And you have to have that in your marriage. And if you don't, it will crumble down.
Before we dive in, I need your help. We are on a mission to get the Relationship Restored channel to 100,000 subscribers. And the best part is it's completely free for you, but it means the world to us. So if you're watching and loving the episodes, hit that subscribe button. Oh, and one more thing, I can't forget to mention our Relationship Restored online community. Inside, you'll find dedicated chat rooms, daily content, exclusive events, and retreats, all designed to help you build the best relationship with others, and most importantly, with yourself. It's truly a place for the girls. So join today at relationshiprestored.com/community. Hey girls, it's Bre
and Cece,
and you're tuned into For the Girls. Today's guest is a wellness and beauty guru, a DJ, and a best-selling author. We are so excited to have her. Let's welcome Ty Alexander.
Hey girl.
Hey y'all. I'm so excited to have you because ever since Kevin Hart, that's where.
Oh, pew pew.
Yeah, everybody going down. Pew pew. No, but I am so excited to have you because, girl, I mean, you have had your hands in so many different pots, and I had the pleasure of meeting you early on, yes. And you were like just known for beauty then, and then out of nowhere, I was like, whoa. I was like, she's a DJ, and then she has a book, and we just have so many things to dive into. But let's first just start off by you sharing kind of your entrepreneurial journey, because you've done so many things. So kind of share with us like what it has been like, what the process was, and all the things that you've kind of done. And I know it's a lot to dive into in one question, and we'll dive into it even deeper as we go through the show. But yeah, what was your entrepreneurial journey like?
I mean, so my mother and father were both kind of entrepreneurs. My mother, as growing up, my mother owned a home healthcare business. So one half of the house was elderly that she took care of, and then it was our half. So I've always kind of had that entrepreneurial spirit. So I worked for Baltimore City Child Support for a really long time, and then I was up for a promotion that I didn't get, and of course you get pissed. And so I got pissed, and I said, I'm moving. So I moved to New York. At the time, the internet was a thing, blogging was a thing, so I had a little blog, and so I used that blog to get a job at Essence to be an editor. And then that's kind of where my entrepreneurial blogging spirit kind of was birthed. And then through editing with Essence and Ebony and all that, then I also did my own blog on the side, which was Gorgeous and Gray back in the day. And so that's where the beauty guru came. Oh. And then I did that for a really long time. And then the pandemic came along, and then I got bored, and I said, what would happen if I just took a class or whatever? And I took a class. It was 5 weeks, and then we shut down. As you know, the world shut down, and we had a whole year of doing nothing. But I was in the basement playing music.
You're speaking to my spirit.
And so I just had a year. There's this whole saying about 10,000 hours of practice makes you an expert at something, and that's exactly what happened. And so then I'm a DJ, and then in between there, I have a podcast. The podcast was really kind of an outlet for the book. I had wrote the book, and I just didn't have a community. Like when you write a book, you can't really talk back to people. You can't bring those people in per se. And so that's how Self-Care in Real Life came about, through the actual book. I'm getting confused because I do a lot of things.
That's a good problem to have. Okay. I do so much. Like, where do I even start? How do I even keep this going? Like, what?
I do. And part of it is because I just get bored so easily, and I'm just like, what can I do? Like, why can't I be a DJ?
I aspire to live a life like this.
Yeah.
I really do. Like, I'm now stepping into a new season where I left a corporate career that's all I knew, that I absolutely hated. And now I'm like, I can do anything I want to. And it's so funny. Like, I am a lover of house music and EDM. And so, like, my husband joked with me the other day. He was like, we were at a concert. He was like, this could be you up there.
It could.
And I just envisioned myself just up there, like,
it
and I was like,
could.
it could be.
It could.
And then, like, you know, a few hours went by, and like 40 hours went by, and I was like, no, it's not. That's silly. Like, why? I couldn't even. Where would I begin to like
learning?
Teach myself. Like,
I mean, there's lots of classes that you can take online, or there's classes in person, depending on how you learn. But ideally, I would say if it's on your heart, like if it's something that you keep thinking about, like when music hits you, then you should pursue that.
EDM music in particular.
Yeah. And I will say, just to encourage you, EDM music and house music is really easy to mix because it's all the same BPM.
I know.
I could totally see Cece doing that.
Should I be
like,
a DJ?
I mean, I'd be your hype girl. I'll be on stage with you like, yeah. I just gotta wear a good bra.
I encourage, not the good bra.
So, like, what inspired you to get into DJing?
So I've always wanted to be a DJ, and after my mom passed away, we had this pact, like I was gonna do anything I want to do, everything I wanted to try, I was gonna check it off. So the end of like 2019, I was like, oh, I should probably really revisit the idea of DJing. I wanted to do it in the 90s, but as you know, we were carrying vinyl around, and turntables was $20,000. Like, it was DJing still is, but back then it was a very expensive hobby to have.
Yeah.
And so my mom was like, absolutely not. We're not doing that. But as an adult, I was like, well, I can afford it now. Let's just try. And again, it was literally just me. I'm just going to learn to do something new. That's it. And it really challenged me because I'm 48. Here's where you go. I'm 48 now, and the idea of learning something new from the beginning is really hard the older that you get.
Yeah.
And so DJing for me was one of those, getting out of my headspace, being around people who were younger, also learning something new. Like, it really challenged me to really focus and really have discipline, because once you get to my age, you start just doing things by routine.
Yeah,
You get up, you go to work, you do this, you pick up the kids, you come home, cook dinner, and then you start over and you do it again.
100%. I mean, I feel like that's my life right now.
Yeah, well, that's how it starts, right? And then you look up and you're 48 and you've been doing the same routine for the past 40 years, right? And so DJing was that breath of fresh air, that newness, that, that soul, like, oh my God, this is something that I do. And I never intended to be like a DJ. It just was something that I wanted to do, wanted to learn. And again, I'm home for every day, all day for a year and a half. And I think like 2021 came around, and I was on Twitch because that was just the thing we did because we were bored. So I'm on Twitch DJing, and people are like, you should be outside. And my very first gig that I did a festival opening up for Jazzy Jeff.
Wait.
And I was like,
what?
Whoa.
This was the very first one.
My very first gig. And I was like, I feel like maybe I'm a DJ now.
Maybe.
I could do this now. Maybe I can do it.
Yeah.
And so there was lots of validation, from like God or the universe, whatever you want to call it. And it was something that I could not ignore.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those stories where I didn't write this. I am literally just following in the footsteps.
Yeah.
Or what's the saying, like, ordered steps.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm following God's steps.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm doing the Lord's work.
I'm doing the Lord's work. She like, girl, I don't know what that scripture is.
I'm just like over here twirling my head.
Like, the scripture, which one was that?
Dre's mom would be so disappointed in me right now.
That's facts.
That's
no,
hilarious.
but I want to talk a little bit about this because, usually when someone goes into like a new industry or they try something new, especially in entrepreneurship, the only way that you succeed is by making yourself different, right? Standing out from the crowd. And when I was looking through your site, I was like, oh, you don't just DJ, you like curate experiences. So share with us what you did to separate yourself from the crowd.
I mean, in general, one, I was taught by some of the best DJs in this side of on the East Coast by Quicksilver and DJ Be Easy. And so their methods of DJing is just different from other DJs. Like we really focused on the transition. So when you're listening to like a mix or a set of mine, it should feel like one long song, one long continuous song that makes sense together. So for me, that's like my superpower, or my like what sets me apart per se. And I really try to think of like, what's a song that I could add in there? Like, of course, I'm gonna play the bangers, the typical songs, but what's a song I could add in there that you'd be like, let me get my Shazam.
Yeah.
What song is this?
Right.
Because I need to have that. Like, I really enjoy thinking of the songs, or even the songs that you haven't heard in a long time, right?
Yeah.
Like those songs that you
The throwbacks.
Yes.
Those are my favorite.
Or maybe it's not a throwback. Maybe it's a B-side of an album that you were listening to and you like, oh my God, she knows this song too. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think lots of DJs get in the habit of just playing the same 30 songs, the same set over and over, because that's what you dance to, right?
Yeah.
And I will say it's very hard to be in front of people and people aren't responding or they're not dancing.
Yeah.
Yes. That's like fear of mine.
And you're like,
and you're like
They're not liking it, but the song has to continue.
and it can be a little bit of both, right? Like it's not always the crowd's fault. It's not always the music's fault. Sometimes people need liquor to dance. They need other people to dance. They need the lights out to dance.
Yeah.
Like there's other factors that make you want to dance aside from the music. So as a DJ, I try not to take it like too personal, but I ain't gonna lie and be like, why aren't they dancing?
Yeah.
Like what's happening? And so with that, I just go back and I look and just kind of think about or look at my history and kind of pick apart like the places where I could have been better. I'm very critical with myself in everything. And DJing is one of those things. So I think to your original question about setting myself apart, I really do kind of, on top of practicing, I go through every single set that I do and think about how I could have made it better, what I could have taken out, what I could have added, what song did I forget, so I could be better the next time.
That's critical. It's almost like you're coaching yourself.
I am.
I mean, but that's how you become great. Like that's how you master your craft is by going back and critiquing and being able to check yourself like, I could have done this better. Like the crowd really wasn't feeling this. So maybe I should like tweak this up a little bit.
Or if there's a song that they did feel, then I make sure I mark that so that I can play it again. And for a lot of it for me also is I feel like I'm behind because I just started. And so I feel like people like D Nice, like me and D Nice are the same age. Like he's been DJing all of his life. And so I constantly feel like I'm like catching up or I have to catch up. So I have to be as good or better as the person who just started.
Do you think that's helping you or kind of hindering you sometimes because like you feel like...
I don't know if it's a hindrance. I would say I put probably unnecessary pressure on myself a lot because I do feel like I'm racing against a clock that's ticking. Like I'm not going to lie to myself. I'm about to hit 50, like the clock is ticking. And so there's things that I want to do and I have to just move a little bit faster than someone who's 20 or 30. You know what I mean?
Understood.
So.
Well, on the topic of mastering a craft, before we started filming, we were talking about your book and you said you wrote it in basically 30 days. Can you share with us, like, one, why you decided, okay, I'm going to write a book, and then what the process was like in actually making that happen, not just in writing it, but actually getting it published and putting it out there, marketing it?
So I never wanted to write a book. I, again, was a blogger. I wrote this blog post about a young lady who had committed suicide. Her name was Karen Washington. And she had this really popular, like the hashtag was for like red lips, brown girls. I can't remember what the hashtag was, not very important. But her mom had passed away. We had been communicating via email back and forth over at least about 6 months. And I'd screenshot this, put on the blog post. But she eventually committed suicide. And I took it really hard. I took it like I could have saved her, you know, or done something different or said something different. And then I wrote about that in the blog post. That blog post went viral and got picked up by like Cosmopolitan and Elle, like all these different places. And then a publisher reached out and was like, I think we have a book here. And I was like, I'm not writing a book. I'm just a blogger. I'm not an author. So I ignored them. The person who originally reached out to me left, but like her files got transferred to the next person. So then that person reached out to me again. So I was like, okay, something is telling me to write this book. So that was maybe like in the summertime. And I said, sure, fine. And they're like, oh, well, can you get it to us by December? Because we want to publish it by that. We want to have it manuscript by March. And I'm like, ooh,
that's a tight timeline.
I don't know if I can do that. But books only have to be 230 pages, which is 75,000 words, something like that. And so I was like, oh, maybe I could try. So I hunker down, I do the table of contents, I think about what it's going to be about. And really the book is a little bit of a memoir, but it's really me just dumping my feelings, which is why it was so easy or quick to write, because it's nothing but, in hindsight, I wish I had put more time into it, but it's such a raw moment of grief. Like I really am just like, I'm cussing, I'm fussing, I'm mad at God, I'm mad at my mom. Like I am raw, like the wound is open, and that's what the book is, which I think is also why so many people gravitate towards it, because there really isn't a book that is just that raw. Like I don't know one if there is. And for me, like I can't even read it back because I'm like, I'm not that person anymore. I'm not inside of that grief anymore. But I remember that person and how hurt and afraid and lost, you know, that she was. And so that's why it was easy to write, because it was almost like therapy, or was like therapy. It was literally just me kind of jotting down everything, every occurrence, everything about the cancer, all of the bad news I got, my upbringing. Like I just wrote it all down, and that was it.
I aspire to write a book one day. And, you know, when I think about it, what you just said really validated me, because my thought is always like, I don't have the time to dedicate to writing a book, or like not right now, or like, well, it has to be perfect because once it's out there, it's out there. But what you just said, like that raw, real, just kind of like transparent journey, although to you, you're like, maybe I could have crafted it to be X, Y, and Z, but putting it out there in the way that you did is why it's made such an impact. Literally, one of my good friends who lives in my building was like, you're interviewing who? I love her. She changed my life. Like her book is right here. Will she sign it? And like, you could just tell, like she almost cried.
I actually I hate the cover. I hate the cover. I hated that I cussed so much. Like in hindsight, there are so many things that I would change or done differently. But I also recognize and give space to the fact that I'm just not that person anymore.
Yeah. Right.
And 13 years ago, it like fresh out of grief, like fresh off of my mom dying, I'm pissed. I'm angry. I'm like, why didn't you take that person? Why, you know? And so again, that is why at least I feel the community that I've built understands or can see themselves in those words, because that's how you feel when someone you love is taken from you in that way. And you're like, but why? And you don't have those answers.
You know, I also think people are seeking more rawness nowadays. Everything is so curated.
Scripted.
Everything is scripted. Everything is content. Everything is, you know, like proofread and edited so many times that like no one's really getting the raw from people nowadays. So I think that when you can empathize and you can relate to a book that is so raw, that relates to a situation that happened to you directly as well, and you felt those same emotions and you're like, yes, me too. You know, that's the thing that people really connect with nowadays. I think that that's one of the things that we're losing in this era of social media, and you know, there's just so much information, and that, I mean, everything is everywhere all the time, that, you know, we're just so disconnected. So when you have those strong feelings and strong emotions and you feel connected to something like this, even though
it breaks through the noise,
you wish it was a little bit more polished.
Yeah.
I think that that's really where people get more impact.
Yeah. And I also know, like, at the time, because I was like 2016, I think 2017 when it came out. Now we have all the podcasts by Black women. Like we have the Balanced Black Girl, we have Self-Care, like we have you guys. Like we have people now who look like us who are talking about the hard topics. 2016, there wasn't none of that.
Nope. Yeah.
We weren't.
Yes, you're right.
We weren't. We were not. And you're so right. I think a lot of that also is that part of the community that was seeking, to your point, someone that looked like them, that was talking about a hard topic that we weren't talking about.
How has your life changed since publishing the book?
I mean, I honestly don't know if it changed per se, because at the time I was still an influencer and I was still kind of pretty popular.
Yeah.
So people knew who I was and what I did. Yeah. And they were like, oh, she wrote a book. And so I can't say it changed per se. I will say that just sharing about my mom being vulnerable on the internet definitely changed my the trajectory of my like digital journey.
Yeah.
Like I got more followers, I became more popular, right? Because again, there wasn't anyone talking about grief in that way. And I really just got on the internet and was like, my mom is dying.
Yeah.
Are there any doctors? Or like, I leaned on my community to be able to help me get through the journey because I didn't know what else to do. Like I was 35. No one else I had known had lost their mom, like no one. So I had no one to talk to. So I'm literally like, hey, this is happening. Has anyone ever experienced that? So I shared with that because I was looking for answers, not knowing that it would build this community in that way.
That makes sense. And I don't want to like make this about social media at all, but you know, you have 3 different, you know, popular pages, and most people struggle to manage one page. How do you juggle managing 3 different social medias, 3 different brands, and essentially 3 different streams of income?
I have an assistant.
I know that's right. Payroll, check. Check.
That's how.
Noted.
I know, like we pause posting on self-care in real life because we are going through a rebrand right now. But before then, it was all my assistant. I lucked up and found a young lady who mimicked my voice, who paid attention to what I loved, what I liked, how I sounded, and literally could write an email on my behalf
so good.
if I wanted to. So she will, when I get money, she will be director of somebody.
Yeah.
when I have a real staff.
Oh, I love that because I mean, you know, girls, it'd be a lot.
It'd be hard out here.
We were like debating if we were gonna launch a For the Girls Instagram because I was like, oh, Lord, another one.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. It's for the girls, so you know, we'll make it make sense. I was thinking, you know how like I love New York, right? Wouldn't move there. It literally gives me anxiety. It's so much going on. You moved from Baltimore to New York City, and really it was like a dramatic kind of like, I'm just going to move and I'm going to do it. And I think a lot of women, and I know Cece, you're from here and you've lived here. I moved from Cleveland to this area, and it was the best decision I have ever made. Thank you, DMV. But talk a little bit about what that was like for you to just up and move to like this big city, and what advice you would give to someone who's like debating if they should move, especially if they're looking for a fresh start.
I mean, at the time I was with my boyfriend, now husband, and I was like, if we're not getting married, I'm leaving. And I left.
Yeah.
2 suitcases, and I hopped my little behind on a bus, and I went to New York.
Like,
I stayed on a couch. I stayed on plenty of couches, but lots of couches until I could afford my own place. And like I said, I lucked up and got a job at Essence and was able to freelance a lot of different places, but it literally was motivated on breakup.
Yeah.
So I can't give my decision too much
credit. But you know, mine was breakup related too.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm heartbroken, I'm getting out of here.
But I think in retrospect, when you think about the decisions that you make, I wish that we did make more decisions based on the boxes that we put ourselves in, right? Like I felt like I was in this box. I was at this job that I didn't love. I also was in this relationship that I didn't want to go this way. So let me leave. And think about the amount of times that you could have just left.
Yeah.
Or you could have just stopped.
Right.
Or you could have just turned around and did something else. Like we don't do that often enough. And so sure, it was through, you know, a breakup, but it was definitely like moving to New York was literally one of the best decisions that I'd ever made, because it did jumpstart this kind of journey of getting here. Like I think about it often. Like if I never moved to New York, I wouldn't have wrote the book. If I didn't write the book, I wouldn't have become it's so many things that if I didn't do, I wouldn't have gotten to here, right? This space, you know?
So on that point a little bit, so you talk a lot about choosing to be happy.
Yeah.
How does that manifest for you daily? How do you choose to be happy? How would you encourage people to choose their own happiness? What does that look like?
I mean, I don't think that I talked about this on your husband's podcast a while ago. I don't think that people who haven't experienced loss think about the amount of times that you do choose happy, because you are able to choose it more often than you do sadness, where sadness is the monkey that's on my back constantly every single day. When I wake up in the morning and I can't call my mom, or I miss her, especially around the New Year holiday, or just times where like now I've done so many new things that she hasn't seen.
Yeah.
The grief is getting bigger or larger. And so for me, I have to think about what makes me happy. What are those tiny joys? Like, what are those things? But I don't think that people who haven't experienced loss of love or life in that way think about it.
Yeah.
And so I can't really explain it. I just know that we all choose happiness. You just don't realize that you're choosing it.
Yeah.
Because sadness isn't what's the forefront of your emotion. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, me personally, I haven't experienced that level of grief yet. I still have both my parents. I still have all my immediate family. But I know when the time comes, it's going to be definitely a struggle for me. But in that, I do pride myself on being very resilient, and I always try to wake up every single day and also choose happiness. I love being bubbly. I love being in a good mood. Anybody who comes around with negative energy or who's just like humbug or just bringing down the vibes, I'm like, I'm gonna step over here and best wishes. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, I don't want that in my space. So I can definitely relate to that, especially I think like having not felt that grief yet, it's probably a good practice to wake up and consciously choose to be that way, because it is a choice.
It's a choice.
At the end of the day, everything in our life, every decision is a choice. And it's a good practice to kind of choose that daily ahead of feeling those deep moments of grief, so that when you kind of get in that space, you have the tools to be able to kind of get yourself out on the other side.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I lost an ex in the most brutal way. He was shot 17 times. I was on my way to pick him up from getting his haircut, and they killed him while he was in the chair. And I remember being like in this space of, one, I was like, God, like, why me, right? Because it was like, yes, obviously sad for him and his family, but it was also like I had never felt that level of grief to someone who was so close to me, and also like I was so close to the incident. Like I could have been there. I was supposed to be there when he was getting his haircut. And I remember going through this phase of like dropping out of college. I quit dancing for the NBA. I literally said, fuck everything. And it was because it was a choice where I was like, I can either continue living my life as I was, which was a life that was really, I was living for someone else. Like I was going to college for my mom. I was dancing for the NBA for my ego. Like I wasn't really doing anything that was truly making the true authentic Bre happy. And his death was a way for me to decide, okay, how am I going to grieve? Am I going to grieve him and lose myself in it? Or am I going to grieve him and find myself through it? And that was hands down the hardest, but the most just transformative experience I've ever gone through. And it's just like, grief sucks, but there's healthy ways of dealing with it and there's unhealthy ways. And I know the book for you is one of those ways. What are some other healthy ways that you've dealt with grief?
Talking about it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us, we steer away from the hard conversations with the people that we love.
Yeah.
We don't want to be a burden to them.
Yeah.
And I tell my friend, like, I am your burden, you are mine. You can call me. I have a friend whose husband just passed away, and I was one of the first people that she called. And I remember thinking, like, this is such a hard thing to do, but I'm happy that she felt that I was safe for her to do, because you do choose the other side. You do become grief stricken. Grief becomes your identity when you're not able to have an outlet for it to flow, for it to manifest into other things. Grief manifests into so many things. New love, you rekindle another love, or you find new passions, you start new jobs, you know what I mean? Like it can turn to so many things, but it is something that lives inside of you. So for me, it really is building that community and talking to people about it. Like just having an open conversation about how you feel, how it makes you feel, what are you going to do with those feelings, right? Like, are we sitting on them? Do you want to act on them? Like, what are we doing with them?
That's good. I'm going to take that with me, because I mean, I'm not kidding. I really struggle with that. Like even like in my relationship now, like with my husband, that's one thing that I definitely struggle with. I'm not going to say we, because he's good at it and he's helping coach me through it. But like having hard conversations, even with my parents, there are conversations that I should probably have with my parents that I've always wanted to talk to them about. But I've just been too afraid or just too intimidated, maybe because that's still my parents, like split parent child dynamic, to like have those hard conversations with them. But I don't want them to not be here any longer and me regret not having those conversations with them.
I will say, so as most of our listeners, viewers know, I have a white mother, and when everything was happening around Black Lives Matter, you know, Trump being our president again, it was a moment where I, you know, talked to my husband and I was like, I can either address this and address it now because it's happening now, it's affecting me now, or I can do what I've done in the past, which is like brush it off and be like, I know she cares about me, and just allow the ignorance to be like ignored. And because I know she meant no harm and that it was just pure like delulu. And I will say, and I'm saying this for you, I'm so happy I had the conversation because me and my mom are so much closer now than we've ever been. And I was close with my mom before. But like having that hard conversation, it just validates the relationship, right? It validates your feelings, but also it helps our parents. Like my mom was so welcoming and received the conversation, but it's because I had to set it up with love. Like I really had to, first I created a long note for her to like read and process on her own. And then I was like, when you're ready to talk, let's talk. And just remember, this is all coming from out of love. So I would say from, you know, someone who's lost her mom, and for me having that conversation and being like, we're better for it. I want to encourage you to have the conversations because I don't want you to regret it.
I've had mentors in the past that got my mind right completely. Yeah. Like I've had one mentor that he's the one who got my mind right for me to meet my husband. He's the one who actually told me like, you may want to give this dude a shot, because I was, you know, I was toxic back in the day, but who have also told me the same thing. Like you need to have a conversation with your parents, even if you just write them a letter.
Yes.
Like, but get it out.
Do it.
So
back to you, Ty.
Sorry,
because I'm like, I never knew that about.
I'm taking that with me. I'm taking that with me.
Yeah, you know, I'll be following up. I'm like, so are we having a talk? But in past interviews, you had talked about how intimacy was like an issue for you. Can you share why it was an issue, and then how that has manifested or shown up in the relationship with your now husband, and what you've done to work on it?
Issue is such a lofty word.
Yeah.
I'll say it's something that I noticed that I wasn't good at.
Yeah.
Right? Like whether it's telling people I love them or hugging or kissing, like I was never, for me, that felt like things you did for sex.
Yeah.
It wasn't like just if we're sitting somewhere and I might touch you or we're being affectionate it's really not intimacy. It's really affection. Because growing up, my parents weren't affectionate to us. Like it was very much, did a good job. Great. Bye.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. Bye. Sure. That was great. Yeah. You know, like it was never, until my mom got sick, honestly, it was never really an emphasis on the affectionate part of a relationship. And I can't say I noticed it when I had my child. When I had my child, I was very cognizant on being the opposite of what my parents was. So I hugged him all the time. I kissed him. We tell each other, I love you. Like he's very affectionate because of that.
Right.
And so going into my marriage, affection was hard, but I just got better at it the more that we've been together for 20,000 years. But the more we were married, the better, you know, I got at it.
I struggle with that a little bit too. Like I could definitely be better at it. My husband is a very like much so like touchy feely, and I'm just like, okay.
What is your love language?
Acts of service.
And his is physical touch.
Yeah, my husband's is definitely acts of service. Mine is gifts. Buy me things.
Oh yes.
But that was
Cece's like, that's my second one.
That's my second one.
Close second.
But in retrospect, like as a kid, that's what my dad did. Like instead of telling us that he loved us, oh, let's go get a treat. Let's go get a toy. Let's go get your favorite album or whatever. Like we always, every Friday we went to go buy something. And that was how he showed us how to love. And so as an adult, that's what I craved, because I was like, oh, if you don't buy me stuff, then you don't love me. Like, do you even love me if you didn't buy me anything? Like, what? You were outside, you didn't bring back nothing for me?
Rude.
Do you love me?
Right? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
It's interesting because I'm definitely physical touch, and Dre is more like acts of service, words of affirmation. But I feel like the longer
words of
we're
affirmation
together,
is like a second to that.
Okay.
Like if you're not buying me things or at least telling me that you love me, like, do you really? Like, what are we doing?
Words of affirmation, I've never been thinking because I'm like, these niggas would be like, I love you. And then it's
Yes.
like,
Well, and
who
that-
is
well-
this girl?
Prove it.
And that's why my top one is the buying, because I'm like,
Yeah.
you really could probably
Show
tell me
me.
anything, but
You
I need
ain't
you to
buying
show
all
me.
of
Show
them.
me.
What are you buying me?
Prove it.
Where's the bank? Literally.
So you and your husband, you guys have been married over a decade.
So we've been married for 7 years.
Oh, 7. You've been together for
We've been together
over
for
12?
23 years.
23 years?
Yeah.
Goodness.
That is beautiful.
Sure.
Oh my God. She's like, sure. Well, my.
Sure.
Let's talk
course
about
it
it.
is.
Let's talk about it.
Sure.
So,
Right.
one, did you always know that like you wanted to be married and you would be married?
No.
What was your thoughts
I was
on
never
marriage?
I was never the one, because my son is 20. My son's 29. I've never wanted to be a mom. Never wanted
There's
to be a wife.
no way you have like a 30
I'm like, that's
I'm-
wild.
You have a
48.
me.
I do have a you. I absolutely do have a you.
That's
I am-
crazy.
I
Yeah.
don't believe it. I don't.
My son is 29. He'll be 30 this year. But yeah, like I was never I got pregnant. I was 19.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was the one that was like, I'm not pregnant. Whatever. And then 6 months later, I was like, oh yeah, I'm really
pregnant.
I'm really pregnant. We're about to do this.
Okay.
But I knew I didn't want any more. Like, I was never a person who wanted to have a bunch of kids. I didn't like.
Yeah.
It was never a thought to me. Not to say that my life was traumatic, but my dad was on drugs. My mom was struggling to stay married. Like, it just didn't seem like something I wanted to do. So I never really thought about it. So when I met my husband, he was just my really good friend. We were somebody who had sex all the time. It was good and sure. But then the redundancy of it, we were doing it for so long and on and off. Then I was like, wait. We probably should just get married. This is dumb. Like, what are we actually doing?
Yeah.
And that was if we don't want to get married, I'm just going to leave. I go to New York. Whatever.
And how'd you guys come back?
6 months later, he came to move with me. And then we were getting, like, that was it.
Okay.
So
And then it
ask
all
him.
just made-
He got his mind right in the last 6 months.
Yeah. Ask him.
Well, I had seen, because, a big thing of me and Dre's relationship has been like, really majority of our relationship outside of 1 year, we've been in business together full time. Like our sole income, only income, full-time business. And it was very interesting, but we were waiting for marriage, so we had nothing else to do, basically. But you and your husband were, I believe he taught you photography, and you guys were in business for a while. What was that like? Do you recommend working with your partner? Give me all the tea.
So I recommend it if you and your partner are in a good space. At the time that my husband and I, who was my boyfriend at the time, or might have been on and off boyfriend, I don't even know what stage we were at. We weren't in the best space, but we were really good at business. We were really good creatives together, but we were really struggling in our relationship. And I said, well, I don't even want to do this if we can't be together.
Yeah.
And so we just stopped. And even like now, our relationship is really good, but working together, something about our heads don't go together.
Okay.
And so I admire when you can work with your significant other. I wouldn't say I wouldn't recommend it or recommend it. I would say try it, but don't allow that to be like the straw that says, oh, we can't be together. I would say pick your relationship over the work.
So being with someone for 23 years, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned? And what would be some maybe recommendations for other women that are aspiring to have a partner for that long and longer?
That you change, that he will change, that
You change together?
or not.
Oh.
Sometimes he changes and you're the same, or you change and he's the same. It would be great if you change together, but that's not always the perfect thing. So you have to learn to love through that change.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think we're better now, but there was definitely a point in time where I was changing because of the grief that I had dealt with, because of my different careers, moving, the access that I had. I was just a different person. I wasn't, and even now, like, I think I remember, it might have been pandemic, and he did something and I was like, I don't like that. And he was like, but you used to, but I'm not that person anymore.
Yes.
I don't, so please stop doing that. So you have to allow the relationship to change in that way. And you have to be vocal. Like when I think about the times when I didn't, I think about even in that moment about what I said, had I said it earlier, because I honestly, if I'm honest, I didn't like it at all. I didn't like it when you did it the first time.
I have an experience like this, so please tell me more.
But I like this guy. We're dating. It's cool. It's not that big deal. I won't say nothing. But then we're 10 years later. I really don't like you doing that. Please stop. You know what I mean? And that gives a disservice to your relationship because you could have said it year one.
Yeah.
But now you've let all this time build up and now he's resentful. You're resentful. He didn't understand why. He's like, well, bitch, you've been liking it.
Yeah.
You ain't say nothing before.
Right? So he thought.
So
right.
And so he feels lied to when technically you did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think my biggest advice to people is to understand that you will change. Be as honest as you can with the tools that you have, but also know that with that, like you will just change. Things will change. The things you liked year one, you're not going to like in 23 or 10 or 5, right?
Absolutely.
You might like new things that you need to be vocal about.
Right.
And so with that change being communicative, like making sure that like my husband, not for nothing, we could get divorced tomorrow. That's my nigga.
Right.
Through and through.
Right.
I'm going to call him every time anything happens. It's bad, sad, whatever. And so when you have that foundation, all the other things fall into play. Absolutely. Everything else makes sense. And you can get through the hard times. You can get through the times where you don't like that man. He's pissing you off. Go in the corner. And that you might be in the corner for 5 years. But I'm able to get through that because the foundation is solid.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying?
I do.
And if you're I honestly believe that that's how you get to divorce. It's because that foundation isn't solid. Because those things happen to all of us in every relationship. Think about your friendships, how many times she's changed. The people that you love, like people change. The older that you get, you want to do things, you learn new things. And you're only able to withstand that is because the foundation is strong.
Right.
And you have to have that in your marriage. And if you don't, it will crumble down.
Yeah, you know what's funny is so when Cece first met her husband, this is at this point, me and Dre, I think we were waiting for marriage.
Yes.
We were like a few years
like
in.
3 years in.
Yeah, so we were engaged and we were like about to send out wedding invitations. And I remember Cece coming to me, she was like, so I told Shane, like, we got to wait for marriage, or basically we got to like take sex off the table.
Rocking with
but
that.
her reasoning was, it wasn't like a monkey see, monkey do. It was that Cece and I were such good friends. She was very close with Dre and she knew our reasoning for waiting was to build a very strong foundation. And not to say that you have to take sex off the table to build that, but for a lot of people, sex is, it's like putting on blurry glasses. Like you can't fully really see the person without removing all of the fluff. And sex is a coping mechanism for problems. It's like, instead of in the past when I would have an issue with the ex, why'd this happen with it? And then it's like he started kissing me and now we in the bed naked and so we just not gonna talk about what happened.
Right.
And then it happens again. And it's this cycle that repeats itself. And so especially for women, it's almost this thing of like, let me protect myself and make sure that this foundation and this relationship is something I actually want to invest in, especially when you've gone through bad relationship after bad relationship. And so when Cece told me that, she was like, I'm gonna talk to him and be like, hey, I want to take sex off the table, because really for her it was a test. She was like, I want to make sure that this man is here for me and like really wants me and isn't just having a good time. And he stood the test.
He did.
Yeah, here he is.
We did.
Now the husband.
We did stop having sex because before my husband was my very first serious relationship, and before him, I was dating all types of dudes, like just the worst party promoters. No offense, but DJs and you know what I'm saying, like just not the tongue out. No offense. You know what I'm talking about.
If I were a younger DJ, I probably would have been that kind of DJ.
What I'm saying?
You have
And
those.
it's really interesting to watch it now, like because I'm in the scene, like to watch younger girls gravitate towards the DJ. I'd be like,
the DJ is the star.
Yeah, but he's also
dated a DJ.
I mean, we all did.
We all did. Join the club.
We all did.
Why?
We all did.
Like,
but everyone was dating the DJ to be in the section to get the free thing.
To get him for
to get the
free.
section.
But that's
to
what
get
I'm
the
saying.
access.
Like, I look at the younger guys now and I'd be like, you do know she don't really like you.
She's dating you.
She's
to get
dating
the
you because of the
access.
access. Because I don't want to be out there.
Exclusively for
I
the
don't want to be
access.
out there in Gen Pop.
Okay.
I want to be in the back.
With the general?
Yeah, I'm not out there. Yeah, she don't really like you.
Up here, behind you. That's what I need to be.
Yeah. All right, so I have one final question for you.
Okay.
You are known for reinventing yourself, right? And I feel like we do live in a generation right now where, again, it's like the social media, it's like the comparison, just always having to assign purpose to the position that you have or the title that you have. For our listeners and watchers who why do I keep saying watchers? It's terrible.
Viewers
who are in a space where they're just like, you know, like I love myself, I do, but like I'm just not, I don't feel good about myself right now, and I want to reinvent myself. I want to change my look. I want to change the things I'm learning, my hobbies and skill sets. Like, where do you begin? What does reinventing yourself even look like?
I mean, I think a lot of times people don't give emphasis for sitting with yourself and your thoughts. Like, I spend a lot of times in silence.
Yeah.
And I'm just listening to myself. All the random thoughts that fly by. If something catches my thought, I'll keep it and say, oh, let me come back to that. That might be a passion. That's a thing I got to do, or that's a thing I want to do, or a thing I want to be better at. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And like, you're not listening to yourself, then you don't know yourself, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so those self dates are important. Going out to dinner by yourself is important. Going to a concert, just chilling, you know, getting the environment. Like, those are ways that you can be authentic to yourself and really figure out the things that you want, because reinventing yourself really is knowing that. And for me, it was, I'm changing, right? I've been on the internet for 15 years. How long am I going to be an influencer? In that capacity, right? Like, in that capacity. And so for me, it was like, I have to either add another skill or rework this or tweak this to make this feel grown up, if you will, right? And so DJing was that thing, like, let me just add something again that I've always wanted to do, check it off my list. I might sew later. I don't know. Who knows? But you know what I'm saying? But I think, and I also think it is a disservice to us and younger people that believe, especially my generation. I'm from the generation where you got a job and you work there for 30 years.
Yes.
And then you got a pension and then you retired. Or you retired and you got a pension and that was it. And so now you guys are in the, we can do whatever. We're on the internet. We can have this and have multiple streams of income and this. And so I'm somewhere in the middle. And so that's kind of where it's easy for, I don't want to say easy, but it's become easy for me because I'm drawing from both of those generations. Like, sure, I want the stability of it, but I'm also just playing around with the idea of like,
sky's the limit.
The sky is the limit. Do I really have to do one thing forever?
Yeah.
Can I learn something else? Can I be something else? What else can I be besides this, right? Like, I just don't believe that we were put here. If this is truly the one time that we get to live life, am I really only supposed to do or be good at one thing?
Ooh,
yep.
Yes.
I look at reinvention as like almost like chapters. So me and Cece are both in a space of like reinventing ourselves. It doesn't mean that we're changing who we are at the core, but it means how do we define who we are in this season and what does this new chapter look like? And every chapter has a set of challenges and hurdles, but like wins and things worth celebrating. And so it's super exciting. And I just feel like your platform and just who you are and how you show up is just so authentic, so needed, so relatable. And we're going to wrap this up because Tasia is so excited to meet you.
I was like, what happened?
I know.
Like, what's happening?
She's like, I'm at the door. I'm at the door. Go get Tasia. So like, honestly, when I met her, she shared her journey with me a little bit and even shed some tears when we were first talking. And she just was, you know, I couldn't relate. And so just saying Ty Alexander, she was like, girl, I gotta come. So Ty, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you and your time.
I got so many gems from you, girl.
Oh,
I know Cece's glass is empty, but we're just gonna do a little cheers.
Sorry.
We can't cheers
I'll give you a sip. Here, girl. Here.
I was like, give her a little bit of something. We can't. That's bad luck. We can't do the empty glass.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
We've been cheers.
Cheers.